everybody. I had such a good time talking with my friend Natasha about Jane Austen's novels and ranking them. But my desktop is getting repaired, and so I'm using my laptop, and so the sound quality wasn't up to my normal quality, but hopefully the content is fun enough that you can ignore that. But I just wanted to let you know I am aware that some of the sound quality isn't the best. But again, I hope you enjoy it. And thanks so much. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And in honor of Jane Austen Month, which I've been doing on my channel, I thought it would be fun to do a special episode for our Wednesday episode. We're talking about Jane Austen herself and her 6 most well-known books. And I have a very good friend with me to do this. My friend Natasha Alvar is here. And thank you so much, Natasha, for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Yay!
Yeah. So you haven't been on Rachel's Reviews as much. You were on Female Film Critic panel, but why don't you introduce yourself to the audience for people who might not have seen you before?
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Natasha. Like Rachel said, I'm from Singapore. I am a film critic and a film editor at Cultured Vouchers. So we do lots of stuff like, of course, film, books, TV, games, wrestling. Yeah, so that's my main preoccupation.
Yeah, when we have so much fun at Hallmarky's podcast, and we did a whole ranking of, if you want to hear more of our thoughts on books, we did a whole ranking on the Bridgerton books over at Hallmarky's podcast. If people want to check out, I'll put a link to that in there. But have you always been a Austenite, a big fan?
Of course, yeah. Okay, I have to say that maybe this sounds blasphemous, but I prefer Bronte, the Brontes.
Uh-huh.
But I do love Austen. She's definitely like, one of my top 5 writers, I think, that I really
Mhm.
adore, and I've like read all her stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the first one you ever read?
The first one I ever read was Sense and Sensibility.
Ah, me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. It's weird, right? Because like Pride and Prejudice is so popular. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I don't know actually how was Sense and Sensibility her first book, was it? It was,
Yes.
right?
I think,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was her first book published, but I think it was her first book fully completed novel. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that, it came before I think Pride and Prejudice. But Pride and Prejudice was the more popular novel.
Yeah. So I also read Sense Sensibility first, which is kind of interesting. And I think because I had seen the movie, the
The
uh
Ang Lee movie.
the Ang Lee movie, yeah. And it looks like, yeah, she had Sense Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Emma, Persuasion, Northanger Abbey is the order of release. And I just loved it. I read it I had like a winter break in between my first year of college. Yeah, I was 17 and I had like, I don't know, I think almost a month off. And I read Sense Sensibility. And my mom's a big reader. And so I think that also influenced me. And I absolutely loved it. I mean, it makes sense that I would have loved it because I'm really close with my sister. So the dynamic between Eleanor and Marianne was very something I could definitely relate to.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's one of like the best, I think, sister relationships ever written in like a novel, besides I
Yeah.
think Little Woman. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in that month that I had, I read Pride and Prejudice and Persuasion, I think.
Oh
I just like
wow.
was on fire. I was
Yeah.
I was so excited. And for years, I would read all 6 every year. And it was like a tradition. And then I started the podcast, and I didn't have time to do that anymore.
Oh,
But I did do it last year. I read all. I mean, most of them I listened to, but that counts.
yeah,
uh,
yeah. I would say
and
so.
I was really happy because that had been such a fun tradition for so long that I'd kind of let go. And so, but last year I read all 6 again. and I love all of them. I don't there's not a I mean there's ones that I like less than others, but they're all I think worth reading, I would
Yeah, I
say.
think that's the thing about Austen, right? There's like no weak books. I think in her arsenal, I think they're all
Hmm.
quite strong. It's just
Yeah,
preferences, I guess.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we thought it would be fun to rank her books, all six books, and we came up with five, well, four categories. We came up with four categories. So we have overall experience, overall feeling of the book, the heroine, the hero, and then the adaptations, whether series or feature film. So that's how we did 1 to 10, our scores. So it's going to be fun. And I don't know what your score, you know what my scores are, but I don't know what your scores are. So this is going to be fun.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Well, let's dive in. Let's talk about Sensibility first.
yeah.
So kind of interesting. This is both of our first of hers. What is your overall feelings about this book?
I think okay. I mean, I think this is a general rule of thumb for Austen, but I feel like her heroines are always more interesting than her heroes. So
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed, I think, Eleanor and Marianne's characters. I like the whole idea of that sense and sensibility aspect. You know, one has more sense, the other one has more sensibility. And I think what really struck me about the book, I think, and something that Austen consistently focuses on, right, is the economic realities, to of a woman at that point, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the position that the Dashwoods find themselves in at the beginning of the novel, right? So, they're dependent on, I guess, the men that they will have to marry. They both would have to make, good marriage kind of prospects, right? To just survive. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that the 95 and the 95 does a lot of things right, but it really captures very well that sense of they have nothing that they can do as far as their prospects in life. Like they kind of just have to sit. There's a lot of scenes of them kind of sitting and waiting
Yeah.
for things to happen. And it captures that really well.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that the dynamic between Eleanor and Marianne is so easy to relate to, even now, all these years later. That I think that a lot of families have the dynamic of you have sort of the more headstrong sister and the more peacemaker of the family. I feel like almost everybody kind of has that, but Eleanor is such a good character because she's not like Beth in Little Women or something like that, like this paragon of virtue.
Yeah,
She
she's not. Yeah.
Yeah, she's flawed and gets frustrated with Marianne especially. But she's very logical. She doesn't go off of emotion like Marianne, and I think that they both learn something from each other by the end. And I do love in the in 1995 when she just starts ugly crying. That's one of my favorite
Yeah.
scenes in a movie.
Yeah. I
Because
I do think that Hugh Grant and Emma Thompson looked a bit weird together, but I think they
yeah,
they they made it work. I mean, I was believable, I guess. Yeah.
well, so yes, the we were talking about the heroines. I think Marianne and Eleanor are both great, especially if you think of when they were when he was writing. Like someone like Marianne would be pretty scandalous. Like I think her actions now don't seem as scandalous now as they would have at the time. Like going out in an open uh carriage riding with a man that you're not
Yeah.
engaged to. Like things like that we maybe don't think much of now was like a big deal back then.
Yeah, I mean, especially the way that she carried on with Willoughby, right? It gave
Yeah.
the impression to everyone that they were engaged. Everyone thought that they were secretly engaged, and she allowed him to take a lock of her hair, without any promises. Yeah, yeah. So I think, I mean, that's how if if I think if she maybe didn't have Eleanor, right, or she might have easily gone into ruin in some ways.
Yeah.
Scared.
Yeah. What do you think of Lucy Steele? Do you think how duplicitous do you think she is? Do you think she knows from the very beginning that uh that Eleanor's had this connection with Edward?
I don't know. I feel that she does because she's so
Yeah.
pointed in like sharing her secret with Eleanor, and telling her about, about, everything about Edward, right? And oh, like we have
Hmm.
to keep this a secret and I'll share this secret with you. I don't know. Like I felt like she
Yeah.
knew something. And yeah, but I think, it's so unfortunate for Edward, right, to have made that connection and engagement with her over like the folly of youth, and then have no way to extricate himself, until later.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's all about honor and keeping his
What?
promise. But it's interesting that when Robert comes along, Lucy has no problem breaking her promise.
Because he inherited the estate,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, so
right.
she goes where the money goes, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the dudes, as I like to say, the heroes. So you have Edward, who is a bit of a wimp. That
Yeah.
I mean, his actions make sense given the time that the book is written, but from our perspective, you want him to be a little bit more like, oh, come on. Uh, and then Brandon, Colonel Brandon. I think that they're both respectable matches for our heroines, but they do kind of feel a little bit like afterthoughts compared to the other relationships in her books. That this book is really about the sisters.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I love Colonel Brandon, but I also do think that he's a bit old for
yeah,
Marianne. And I think a lot of his affection for her is like influenced by the first woman he ever loved, right? And Marianne
yeah,
reminds him of her. So, yeah. I think I
yeah,
read somewhere the very interesting thing about the idea of, I think, second attachments in Sense and Sensibility, that I think with the exception of Eleanor, everyone essentially makes a connection with their second attachment, which I found to be interesting.
yeah. That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. Even their father, you could say, did that.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, the second marriage. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so I think the adaptations, I think the 1995 is great. I mean, the biggest flaw with it is that Emma Thompson decided to cast herself as Eleanor, even though she is very good. She is way too old to be playing that part. She's supposed, and they kind of write it in as if she's an old maid, but that's not true to the book. In the
Yeah,
book, she's 19 and Marianne is 17, and they in the 2008 version it's much more accurate and like accurately cast to the book.
yeah. And it has Dan Stevens, right? I didn't even
Yes,
realize it was him.
yes, I really like that version, the 2008 version.
Yeah.
It's definitely a smaller budget, so things like the costumes and other stuff are sort of more simple, but I think that the I forget who the actress is for that one, but yeah, Dan Stevens is Edward, and it's definite upgrade over Hugh Grant.
I think Hugh Grant can't like let go of his gruntisms. Like I don't know, he's just so
Yeah,
him, right, in the way he plays the character. Uh, yeah, but I mean
yeah,
they do have wit, they do have banter. You can understand why they would make a good match, but visually it looks kind of strange, a bit
yeah.
slightly.
Well, so in the 2008, Eleanor is played by Hattie Morahan, is her name, and then Marianne is Charity Wakefield, and Mrs. Dashwood is Janet McTeer. If y'all saw the menu, she was in that. I love her in that.
Yeah, yeah,
She's a good actress, and then Dominic Cooper is Willoughby in the
which was
2008.
interesting.
Yes. and and so I think that both those adaptations are really good. But I like I said, I just think that she should have given the part to a younger actress, even though she's really good in the role. It just doesn't fit the character. What
Yeah.
do you think about those two versions?
I agree with you. I think that the 2008 one was more authentic, I think, to the
Yeah.
text. Yeah, yeah. Whereas I think, I don't know how I feel about Colonel Brandon in that one, but I do think the character is also once again more authentic. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
a bias there where when you cast someone like Alan Rickman, who is
Yeah.
just so charming. I think Colonel Brandon's a bit of an awkward man. Like he's just very earnest, but I don't think, I mean, it's a reason why Marion goes for Willoughby initially, right? Because he's so charming, and charismatic. Yeah, and I feel that Alan Rickman as Colonel Brandon kind of set the,
The
the
bar
expectations a
high.
bit too high. Yeah, and we're like, oh yes, right? We don't understand, but yeah, I felt like Colonel Brandon was more suitable and I think more accurate. Yeah, in the second one. So I prefer Ang Lee's Sense and Sensibility, but I admit that the 2008 one is more accurate to the text.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that we have both. For our numbers, for our points, I gave Sensibility a 10 because I feel like between both of them, we have everything that you could want.
It's a great novel. There's so many like twists and turns as
Yeah.
well, so that's great.
So
Yeah,
yeah, for movie at for my overall score, I gave it an 8 because I do think that as far as the book, I think there are some parts that drag a little bit. There's some slow parts, like when
yeah.
they're in London, and kind of waiting for Willoughby, and just some of those parts just drag a little bit, but I still love it. I guess so. I give it an 8.
For
And
the adaptations.
no, for overall, I gave it an
Oh, okay,
8.
okay.
And then for heroines, I gave it a 10. For hero, I gave it a 7. Adaptations, I gave it 10. So total points 35.
Oh, that's a strong. It's a strong showing.
Yeah. What about you?
I think it was more generous. Oh wow, this is a it's a first. I think overall I gave it a 10. I think maybe because I read it first. It was my
Yeah.
first introduction to Austen, and I think I loved it so much. And it encouraged me to read the rest of her work. So I think, I always owe it to Sense and Sensibility. So I gave that a 10. I gave the heroines a 10. I love Eleanor. I think she's
Yeah.
one of my favorite Austen, or just general like female
Characters.
characters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for the hero, I gave it an 8. But because Edward, I think, should have been a little bit more assertive, and Colonel Brandon he's a nice man. But I just feel a little bit sad for Marion. I think. I mean, I like that he's devoted, but I do think, I do wish that she was able to kind of make a match that would be a mixture, I guess, of Sense and Sensibility in that sense, right?
Yeah. A little more
Yeah,
passionate of a match.
yeah.
And then what'd you give the adaptations?
Oh, I give it a 10. I think
Okay, good.
I would rewatch it any day of the week. I think
Mm-hmm. It's
either
so
one.
good.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. Well, then let's talk about Pride and Prejudice. This practically invented enemies to lovers. It's so well executed, especially from the proposal onward. I mean,
she really puts you in a position where you think there is no way these two people are going to get together, especially given the customs of the time and the fact that she refused him so boldly. And but I mean, especially after I've read it many times, that they will get together, but she makes it so believable that they won't, that really drives you through the story. And pretty much from that proposal to them meeting again in Pemberley, to Lydia's what happens with Lydia, all of that, it's just like perfectly executed, I think. Overall, it's one of my favorite books.
It is. I think. I mean, I know you have your tradition and you reread, all six
Mhm.
books, right? Every year, you try to, right?
Yeah.
But I think Pride and Prejudice is probably one of Austen's books that I've reread the most because I just love it so much. I think. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I've reread the rest, in some capacity, but I've reread Pride and Prejudice like so many times, because I don't know, it's like there's always something new when you read it again, and it's just so enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Lizzie is such a perfectly written character.
Yes.
She's flawed. She's likable. You understand why she rejects Darcy, why she all the different things that can be difficult sometimes, because a lot of times when they do enemies to lovers, they forget and make the characters just so unlikable that you don't care, you don't really want them to get together. But what people forget about Pride and Prejudice is that everybody in their lives loves Lizzie and Darcy. Everyone. It's just the
Yeah.
two of them that can't get along. And so that if they could just figure things out, then they would be great because of how beloved they are. They're not
Yeah.
unlikable characters.
Yeah. I think the one thing that kind of already signposts to us that, Darcy is not as bad as Lizzie thinks he is his friendship with Bingley,
Yeah,
who
that's what I'm
is
saying. Like,
like, yeah,
everybody in their lives loves them.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you're just waiting for them to figure things out.
True.
And it's done. And don't you agree that basically from the proposal onward is perfection?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I mean, I think it's really that subversion, right? I mean, I don't think when I first read it, I expected him to propose at that point, because
Yeah.
you're just so used to, like, the happy ever after or whatever, right, coming at the end, right? So, for that to kind of happen at that point was really kind of like oh wow, right? Yeah, he really does have so much regard for her,
Yeah.
that he would do that. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, because we have insight into Lizzie, right? Because we're following the Bennets for the most part, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
Darcy is a bit of an enigma to us, in the sense of what he's feeling. So we're always kind of looking at the social situations and how he's reacting to her and all that. So that was, yeah, I mean, yeah, it was, it just gets
I
better
mean,
and better. Yeah.
it's so impressive how she can make the character, make Darcy go from being the last man on earth I would ever marry to being the best man I have ever known. And I
Yeah.
mean, to make that is pretty incredible.
Yeah. I think the Love in the Villa Netflix
Oh
needs to
my
take some,
gosh.
like,
Well,
they need,
and
needs to take like some studies from this. And
yes, that's true. Um, and I have to say, as far as like true adaptations of Pride and Prejudice, not like how they do it on Hallmark sometimes, or places where it'll have Pride and Prejudice in the name, but it's not really Pride and Prejudice, like true adaptations, there's not there's for me there's not really a bad one in the batch. I mean, I am like super easy to please when it comes to the story, evidently, because I really enjoy the 2005 version. I really enjoy the Colin Firth version. I like the Bollywood Bride and Prejudice. I like the old one from 1940. I just reviewed that on my channel. I just really love it. It's hard to do wrong.
yeah,
Even the zombie one I liked. So
yeah, and Fire Island was good also.
yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So So this gets perfect score for me. 10 overall, 10 heroine, 10 hero, 10 adaptations, total 40 points. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Mine is the same.
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to extreme nitpick, I wish she gave us a little bit more romantic dialogue between Darcy and Lizzie. When he finally proposes at the end, when they finally, it says something like he said what was appropriate for a man desperately in love, or it's just she says something like that, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, I want to hear what he said. I want to hear them talk. Um, but
Yeah.
that's about it. I think it's perfect. So
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. And I think like such a smart move from Austen, right, is to have Lizzie like visit Pemberley and for her to kind
yes,
of imagine herself like, I could have been like mistress of this place, right?
yeah.
And she's so wowed by Pemberley and
Hmm.
yeah, so I really like Austen's use of space and to tell.
Yeah, and then to
Yeah.
see him treat her so well, and then when the Lydia thing comes, it's so devastating because it's just they've just been building up to this point where maybe something will happen again, and she's like, I will never see him again. Ah,
Yeah, because
so
the
good.
scandal, right? It's just so sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about Mansfield Park. So that's next. And this one, I don't dislike it, but it is my least favorite of her books just because I think that certain elements are hard to translate to modern times, like having her fall in love with her cousin is just a little weird. And it's not even just her cousin, because they would say things like that all the time back then, like people that weren't really like related. This is like not only her cousin, but basically her brother, who she grew up with some from the time she was 10. Like it's just a little weird. And I also think all of the stuff with the play is a little hard to sort of translate. I mean, you just have to know that like this play was like basically NC-17. Like it was super racy for the time. So it wasn't like they were
Yeah.
just doing some, lark or whatever. This was like a very racy play. And I think that Fanny is a good character. I like her, but she's also kind of perfect. She's not as flawed as some of our other heroines, like a Marianne or Lizzie.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I think it's because like Austen makes her the moral center of the novel, right? So then that's why she's kind of like this virtuous woman, so whatever
yeah,
like Fanny doesn't like or disapproves of, we as the reader know that, yeah, we should also disapprove of it, so like she disapproves of the play, right? But everyone just ignores her and continues doing their debaucherous thing.
right.
So yeah, so I mean, it's a weird, I guess, Austen novel in a way. Yeah, I don't know.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting that it was her favorite, as at least supposedly that's what people say, is that this was the one she liked the most. So, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
think mainly because of the other themes, right? Like, I think the whole idea of like immorality and ethics and virtue, and the idea of like tradition and modernity, city life and country life. Like, I think it all comes into like into this space of
yeah,
Mansfield Park, right? So I think it's one of like a more socially relevant novels. Like, I think the social take is quite strong on in this one, less I guess about the romance because of the
yeah.
matches that end up. Yeah. Mm.
So I do think it's bold of Fanny to refuse Henry so many times. Like
But he's
she
gross. He's gross.
given her situation, like
Yeah.
that took some
Yeah.
guts
Yeah.
to refuse him. And I think Edward is fine. I mean, I love Johnny Lee Miller so much that it works that he's in the adaptation, but I he's fine, but kind of a wimp. And like to see him he's so invested in Mary for almost the whole book, and so then at the end for him to kind of come around and all of a sudden be with Fanny at the end is not as romantic as some of the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the whole idea of like sense and sensibility, right? Which is something I think Austen uses a lot in her novels, right? Because
Uh-huh.
Fanny is the sensible choice, right? She would suit him really well in his job in the clergy when he takes, his when he finally gets to do that, and Mary wouldn't, right? Because Mary is more of the city life, right? She
Yeah.
likes money, she's vanity. So, but she is also the woman he's more passionate about, that he's attracted to. Yeah, so he has to kind of like grapple with that. But I think Austin is also trying to show that, his disapproval of Henry, and at times him telling Fanny so much about his relationship with Mary is like a way to provoke jealousy. So it does kind of show that he does view her as a romantic partner, that he does find her attractive, but at the same time, Mary is just so alluring that he can't help it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you seen the 1995 movie?
Yeah, with Johnny Lee Miller, right? It's
Yeah.
Edmund.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did a defense of it. I think it's a little underrated. The things, the flaws people have with it, I feel like are reasonable interpretations, and of the book. I mean, you got to put your own stamp on it, especially when it's a flawed book. It's you got to. I don't think anything that it does is like outrageous, in my opinion. Like, yeah, it has the slavery and some other things, but that's in the book. It's just not
yeah,
like as much a plot element as
yeah,
it is in the movie. But I enjoy it. I think that for this story, it's a pretty good version,
yeah.
decent version.
I think it does capture that salacious aspect of the book,
Yeah,
all these sketchy things that are happening. So I think it does do that well. I think the issue is that it makes Edmund a bit too alluring because he's a bit of a he's not that great in the book. I would say
yeah, that's fair. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
think I like that. I prefer it. I mean, that scene where they almost kiss, it's one of those movies where the almost kiss is almost better than the actual kiss at the end. When
yeah,
it's very similar to the scene in Jane Eyre where she saves him from the fire. Uh, it's kind of set up in a similar way with Edmund and Fanny. They're in
yeah,
their pajamas and everything. So I think it's good, and I love the scene when he brings her back, and they have the subtle handhold
yeah.
in the carriage. I love that scene. It's one of my favorite things in movies. Is you can get the we're just holding hands. Okay, great.
Yeah, I
So
think,
I think it's
yeah,
underrated. I like it. I think that for the most part, it does a good job, and it's certainly better than the 2007 one.
oh my
Um,
god. 2000, okay, I think that the 1995 one is good, but it's not very authentic to the characters of the text. So like Fanny is too
yeah,
much like Lizzie, I would say. Like she's modeled after like that Lizzie kind of prototype. Because in the book she's not that vivacious, she and Edmund don't
that's
have
true.
these like near moments. So I think that the other one is actually more accurate, but it's so like snooze fest. like
Yeah,
and Fanny's like running around like a child like half the time. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like I just can't get
yeah,
behind it.
and
Yeah.
they have no chemistry. The leads in that one at all.
Yeah, they look like they're forced
Billy
to kiss.
Piper, and I forget who's the Blake Ritson is the name.
Uh
You do in 1995, she does accept Henry one for just like a day, and then she's like, "Oh no, I should have done that." Which I don't know why they did that, but but yeah, this one is just kind of boring. I agree.
yeah.
So overall, my scores for Mansfield Park, I gave it a 5 overall. Uh, for Heroine, I gave it a 7. For Hero, a 5. Adaptations, a 6. Which maybe that's too low. I'm gonna give it a 7. Adaptations, a 7. And then so total 24. So it's my least favorite of her
Yeah,
book.
I can understand.
What do you
Um,
give it?
I think I have a soft spot for Mansfield Park because like I wrote a paper on it in
Oh,
uni.
okay.
Yeah. So I think all the lectures kind of made me appreciate the text on like a more novel aspect. Not really. I
Uh-huh.
think it doesn't really tick my like romantic bone because
Right.
obviously, but yeah, I appreciate what she did with the novel. So I think I gave overall I gave it 7. Heroine I gave it a 7. Hero I gave 6. And adaptations I gave 7. So that
Okay,
would
good.
be
Yeah.
20s. Oh my god, I have to do math now. 27.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay, so then we have Emma, which I think is her longest book, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the longest
Yeah,
one.
I think so.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yes. And I think that Emma is such a great lead character. It might be her strongest lead character. I don't know. It's hard. Lizzie's so great too, but she is a very flawed character. She's judgmental. She makes mistakes. She obviously tries to manipulate all the people around her, but she has the best of intentions, and she's so young that you can understand that. And I think that Knightley is a great hero. He is he scolds her a lot, but I think especially the last half of the book when he is just like super envious of Frank Churchill, I think is really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Miley is a
Uh,
great is he's a great hero.
yeah.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah. Not as good as
Mhm.
Darcy, but still pretty good.
Not as good as Darcy, very different. And I think what makes Emma as a book special is that it's the only one that has any real romantic dialogue, any banter between our two leads because they are friends. And
Yeah.
it's where she did enemies to lovers, in Pride and Prejudice, she does friends to lovers here in Emma, and the banter that they have about Harriet and about her matches and other things, and certainly when she insults Miss Bates, all of that is really fun. And it's
Yeah.
the only one that has a proposal of like a real. We hear the words.
Yeah, it's definitely her most, I think, romantic. Even though, Pride and Prejudice is up there, I agree with you
Uh-huh.
in the sense that the romantic spaces are not as present compared to Emma. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's another one where almost every version I enjoy. They're trying to think. I mean, I love Clueless. I do like the Gwyneth Paltrow one, 96.
yeah,
I like the 2009 one, which I reviewed on my channel, will be on this week. The 2009 miniseries is so good with Johnny Lee Miller once again
yes,
as Eileen and Mother Grenade. I love her, and I really like that version. And then also, of course, the most recent one, 2020, which I love.
yeah. I think I didn't like the Kate Beckinsale one as much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one I haven't seen it in many, 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 many years, but it does kind of they go off of the book quite a bit in that one, as I recall.
and I don't know, man. Like, is the Knightley? I think the Knightley Emma relationship was not really well done in
Yeah,
that version. Like, I just didn't believe them as like romantic prospects. Like, I
yeah,
mean, even in the Gwyneth Paltrow one, like I could believe like she and Jeremy, I think Northam, right, or something.
uh-huh.
They had like really good
Yeah, Jeremy Strong, I
chemistry.
think.
Yeah. Huh? Was it?
Or I mean, in the Gwyneth Paltrow one, Jeremy Northam.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Jeremy Northam.
And another
Yeah,
one.
he was good. He was good
Yeah,
as
he was really
Knightley.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the proposal in that one.
Yeah.
I cannot desire that. You want us to be the same as it's always been. I cannot desire it. But why? There's also a Bollywood version of Emma was pretty fun called Aisha that people should check out.
Oh, I've never seen
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
it's a hidden one. But yeah, I think that Emma is special because of her character, because of Knightley, and then the romantic banter is really fun. So I give Emma an 8 overall, and I give the heroine an 8. I give the hero a 10 because I love Knightley.
Uh,
I also give the adaptations a 10 because I just think there've been so many. Like Clueless alone was like a foundation movie for me. It was my favorite movie in high school, and I still love it to this day. So I give Emma a 36 total. So
strong
it's second,
showing. Yeah.
yes, second place for
Second
me.
place. Okay. So I gave overall I gave it 8. For the heroine I gave her an 8. I gave even though I do love Knightley. I mean I think I love him a little less than Darcy, so I gave him 8. And overall I love all the adaptations, so I give that a 10. So that would
Yeah.
be 34. Wait, yeah,
Good.
yeah, something like that.
Okay.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
We have Northanger Abbey, and this one really is more of a coming of age story than it is a romance. I mean, it has the romance in it, but I think that this is her silliest book. It's her lightest. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just kind of a lark.
yeah. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. Catherine is very young and very silly. And I think sometimes that Henry feels more like a parent than a lover.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Kind of,
Okay.
like teaching her the right ways to behave and everything. But I still think it's cute. I enjoy it. There's only been one adaptation of this book, which seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
That you only have the Felicity Jones one.
But that was great though. That was such a
it's
good
really
adaptation.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a great kiss.
Yeah.
The end of that.
In the bushes.
Yes, you know it. That's right. Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about that. I think this is just like a fun, silly little book. But if this was like her only book, I don't think we would remember her all that well. I don't think it's like super memorable. But I gave it a 6.
Okay.
In overall.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I think I like it a little bit better than you. Okay, I think the reason why is because I think at some point in my life, I think I was like Catherine. Sadly, like I think I had a very vivid imagination. I read a lot, and I was always imagining all these like stupid things. So I really found it really funny, like that whole gothic element and the way like Austen was mocking, I think, all these gothic novels, and using her heroine to really be a contrast, right? Because Catherine's so naive, right, and inexperienced, in comparison. I do love Henry Tilney. I guess I can understand why you say he does seem like a parent. I think it's because he's just more experienced in the world, and I love his relationship with his sister Eleanor. Like it's so nice. And I think maybe I'm influenced by the adaptation because I love J.J. Field. He's just so dreamy and so good. Yeah, and all the things that he does. So I think I might have been influenced by that. Maybe Henry Tilney on his own.
I definitely don't hate it or anything. But it's just well, I mean, it's my second least favorite after
Yeah.
Mansfield Park. But it's just more of like it doesn't have the gravitas of the other books, which I guess could be kind of fun to not have the drama that the other books have. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, he's the adaptation is excellent. Felicity Jones and
Carrie Mulligan was in it. I was so shocked. I didn't
yeah,
realize. Yeah.
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 And I just think it's crazy that they've never done any other versions. Like, I don't know, you just think that there would be, I mean, maybe there's like some obscure ones, but nothing major, you know.
And then the next month Hallmark is going to be announcing some version of it, Rachel.
They do such a terrible job. They name these movies after Jane Austen, and then they have nothing to do. Like literally, Sense and Sensibility and Snowman or whatever it was absolutely terrible. And they like didn't even get the headstrong sister was named Eleanor, and the quieter
Oh.
sister was named Marianne. You're just like, what? Like, you're not even like, why did you name it this? And then Pride, Prejudice, and Mistletoe, absolutely terrible. I mean, if you're gonna have a Darcy character, you don't hire Lacey Chabert to be your Darcy character. I mean, it had absolutely nothing to do with Pride and Prejudice, like at all. And so it drives me crazy. Don't do it, Hallmark.
It's begun. It's begun.
Although there was on Lifetime, there was a Pride and Prejudice Atlanta, it was called. It was actually pretty
Oh,
good. It was a
okay.
modern take, African American family. But I thought they did a good job actually on that one of updating it. It actually has all the elements of the story.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Unlike
Cool. Cool. Cool.
Hallmark. It was good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have Northanger Abbey. I have a 6 for overall. I have a 6 for heroine. I have a 7 for hero. And I have an 8 for the adaptation because it is really good, that
Yeah.
adaptation. So 27 points total.
Okay. Mine is 9 across the board. So it's a 36.
Nice. Good. Okay. All right. Last one is Persuasion. And this set the standard for second chance romance.
Yeah.
This is the gold standard. And she does such a great job in this book of making every single scene feels like it's brewing with romantic tension. Like Wentworth isn't just like in the room, he's like looking at her and thinking, they have this like back and forth with their eyes, like she just does such a great job of making everything have this sort of double meaning to it.
Yeah. I think, now that we're on the like last book, right?
Yeah.
It's just great how uh diverse I think Austen is in her heroines, in her heroes, in her stories. It always makes me angry when people say that Austen only writes about love. And
No,
I
yeah,
think
me too. I agree
yeah.
with you.
I think, yeah, she's written like great characters firstly, and I think it's just a disservice to say that, oh, she only writes about love, so, she's not a great writer, and so
Well,
it
and I would
drives me
even
insane.
I would fight against that. People say she only writes about love.
Yeah,
She writes about these women, and that's really the only thing they could do back then,
yeah,
is that was their job, was to get married. And these women actually are incredibly bold, like I was saying with Fanny, or certainly with Lizzie. For Lizzie to refuse Darcy, no matter how she felt, for him to refuse him was incredibly bold, that at that time. And so for her to eschew social customs to such it's a thing. I mean, and you have that obviously with Marianne as well. And so it's about these women and them making their choices almost more than it's about love. Like I said, there's almost very little romantic dialogue between the
Yeah.
couples,
Yeah.
except for in Emma.
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, people are missing out on the characters if they just view them as like silly bodice ripper, whatever, like love stories. They're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that
Uh,
there's anything wrong with that, but this is not what
yeah.
these are. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, so I think
I agree.
that, obviously when people make this kind of comments, it means that they've never read
Yeah.
Austen. And, they
Agreed.
just have these perceptions about her. And, they kind of view her as like a rom-com ish writer, which I also
Mhm.
feel, I mean, yeah, there are like, rom-com ish elements, but her wit, her style, her satire, like, she does so many things so well. And I think it's
Mhm.
always something that I see settled on female writers, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Agreed. And I think that Anne Elliot is a timid heroine, but like she's introverted a heroine, but we are rooting from her from the very beginning. She puts up with so much from her family. She is so patient and kind, even with people like Mary.
yeah. Who is the worst?
Yeah. But funny, very funny. And
Do you think that Austen had like a person that she didn't like called Mary?
well, this the funny thing is that Austen in her books are centered. The conflict is about characters getting married and
Yeah.
finding love. That's the conflict. But almost every example of married people in her books are total idiots. There's a few exceptions like the Gardners and the Westons and a
The
few good
cross.
ones.
The cross.
Yeah. There's some good ones, but for the most part, most of them are mess. but I think that Wentworth is great. He's such a good character, and his letter, he even beats Darcy. It's even better. The letter. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm half agony, half hope. Oh, so good. So
Yeah.
good. But that it does lose points by the points that we've set up because I don't think there has been like perfect adaptation of Persuasion. Like I like the Amanda Root one, I like the Sally Hawkins one, but they're both flawed, I think, in different ways. And obviously this most recent one was absolutely terrible.
Uh,
So that's the only place it really loses much points for me. But yeah, I have overall I have it in an 8. There are a few parts where it drags, I think, a little bit in Bath and some of the other stuff with the Musgraves and so I give it an 8, but I give the heroine a 10, I give the hero a 10, adaptations a 6.
okay.
So I end
Well.
up with 34. And that Netflix one really hurt it, unfortunately. That
Oh
was
no.
terrible.
I
It
feel
was
I'm
so
obliged.
disappointing. It was so disappointing. I was really hopeful that it would be good. And, but what about you? What'd you give for Persuasion?
Okay, so I gave Persuasion an 8 because I think for me it's really on par with Emma. I think I enjoy
Uh-huh.
both equally for different reasons. And I
Yeah.
think why, I mean, I agree with you about the adaptations. I think the reason why it's so difficult is because they don't really want to grapple with, I think how much it kind of impacted Anne to say no and walk away from him. Like, I think that melancholy, and all that is very difficult, I think, to deal with,
And
and I think sometimes they don't really know how to, like, what to do with it because they don't want their heroine to look too, like, I guess, insipid or
submissive
something.
or well, and
Always
I
just,
think that we just don't have that many characters these days of women who are introverted and a little bit more quiet. Uh you don't see that very often, that like in order to be a strong female character you have to be bold and snarky, and and so they end up trying to turn every character into Lizzie or Emma. And I think it would be nice if we actually got like a really good version of. I mean, the Amanda Root is pretty good. I love Sally Hawkins, but I don't know. I don't think they quite nailed that like introverted Anne character yet.
Yeah, I guess it's difficult to portray on screen, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not privy, I guess, to the interiors. So they just have to focus on like the acting and the looks, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but wait, where was
But that letter, I mean, the letter, and
Yeah.
there's some people in the Amanda Root when they complain about the ending, that they have them kissing in the street with this circus and stuff going on. I love that. I think that's so romantic. I love the idea of the being so lost in their own bubble that they don't even
Yeah.
notice a circus behind them.
Yeah.
I think that's really romantic, I think. I mean, yeah, people make the same thing. Oh, that in North and South, the way they changed the ending for the miniseries, with them being on the train and kissing. And I love the ending in the book, but I love the ending in the series as well. Because yeah, they probably wouldn't have done that in real life, because that would be scandalous to kiss on the train. Like, but I could
Oh
suspend
man,
disbelief enough to enjoy it.
God, I feel that North and South. This is such a side note, but that North and South adaptation is so good. It's so good. I was in love with Richard
Yeah.
Armitage for so
Oh,
many years after that.
yes, me too. I mean, I love that's one of my favorite books. But they nailed it. I thought they did a great job in
Yeah,
that ending. So good. But
yeah.
but there we go. So my order, my ranking is I have Pride and Prejudice at 40, Emma at 36, Sense and Sensibility at 35, Persuasion at 34, Northanger Abbey at 27, and Mansfield Park at 23. So so it's a Pride and Prejudice, Emma, Sense Sensibility, Persuasion, Northanger Abbey, and Mansfield Park is my ranking. And I forgot to say that we didn't include like unfinished works or her early like Love and Friendship or short stories, things like that. We just went with the 6 main novels. So
Yeah.
what about you? What's your ranking order?
Okay, so I start from number one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay, so it's Pride and Prejudice at 40, and then it's Sense and Sensibility at 38. After that, I have Northanger Abbey at 36, Emma at 34, Persuasion at 33, and Mansfield Park at 27.
Really good. Very good. This is
Yeah,
really fun. I enjoyed doing this. Thank you so much. And,
yeah,
and
yeah.
where can people follow you and all your content?
Okay, so they can read my ravings. I think I've written on Jane Austen a couple of times
Uh-huh.
on unculturedvouchers.com. So yeah, there's film, there's books, games, wrestling. Yeah, and they can also follow me on Twitter at Lit My Soul. And yeah, so sometimes I tweet about stuff. So check that out.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, all that in the description, so check that out. And yeah, you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews, all our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes, and on Goodreads. You can follow that. And over on Hallmarkies podcast, Bree and I, every month we do a romantic reading wrap up, which is really fun. We even did a whole episode on Persuasion last year. I'll put a link down to that playlist as well if people want to hear more about my monthly reading. They can do that. But if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. Really appreciate that. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate that. And we also have the Patreon group and merch store. Check that out. And thanks so much, Natasha. This was really fun. And yeah, we'll have to do it. We'll have to pick another author one of these days and do
Yeah.
it. This was fun.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks so much for having me
okay.
on.